What's up, everybody? Odell Bazell here with Impact Lab Radio. And I'm really excited about this interview because I have coached and worked with over 1,000 speakers in my career. And I am hired as a speaker often to go to colleges, to go to universities and organizations all across this great nation. But this conversation with the one and only Rob Williams, the founder and lead facilitator with RW Connections, is going to give you so many things. It's going to help your students stay in school, and it's also going to help your students have a better experience as well. Rob, how you doing? How you feeling, man?
I'm good, Odell, man. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here, man.
Me too. Me too. And I want to get this out of the way before we start because I think it needs to be said in this climate that we're in. I believe, and this is just my opinion, I'm not putting it on you, I'm just telling you what it is. My opinion is that when people in the past, specifically colleges, universities, educational institutions, when they hire speakers, they do it in a way that does not properly serve their audience. And what I mean by that is they don't bring in somebody like you that doesn't just give the students a flash in the pan, really cool message full of sayings, but it actually gives them a framework to work through. That's what I think. So that's why I'm excited to talk to you. I want you to kick us off with my favorite story of yours. Um, and and we're both laughing because we know what it is. But talk about that grade, man. We got to bring that up and but bring it up and how it's connected to what you do today.
Yeah, man. So that grade, that's a power. I want to call that the power move right there. That's what changed my life. So
It
in
was a good.
college,
Was it a good grade?
wasn't a good grade, ladies and gentlemen. It was not a good grade. So we're just gonna go right to it. Has anybody ever got an 11 on a math exam?
I'm gonna answer for them and say probably not.
Yeah, man. I got an 11 on a math exam, and this was in discrete math structures. And this was my junior year in college. My junior year, when you think you got it all together, when you're right there at the finish line, and here I am about to fail a class. But what I forgot to mention before in this conversation, this is very interesting. At the same time that I was failing this class, that I got an 11 on the math exam, I was also a college math tutor for freshmen taking college algebra. Make that make sense. So can you? So here I am sitting there looking at that an 11 on that exam, and also thinking I'm a fraud. Here I'm struggling here, but I'm helping other students pass their class. But here I'm struggling. And what started to happen was what happened after I walked out of that classroom. It wasn't the grade that bothered me, it was the noise that came with that grade. It was the voices that came with that grade. Like, do you belong in this class? Do you belong here? Are you in the right major? Well, that kept going over and over and over in my head. And what I didn't realize then, but I realize it now, is that's what a lot of students are dealing with. They're dealing with what I'd like to call noise. When I talk about noise, I'm talking about the negativity, the obstacles, the insecurities, the stress that leads to excuses that keep the students complacent, that just keep them locked in saying, why is it worth it to even continue? And so I had to deal with that noise. I had to deal with what I like to call a pattern that was developing with that. And so the negativity, it started in your mind. So your thoughts, all your thoughts was causing the obstacles. I don't belong. I'm not going to make it. I can't do this. I'm done with this. And see, when you start thinking like that, now you're just building up obstacles, these blocks. And so now you got a block. And a lot of times we think obstacles are stop signs, but we must got to understand the obstacles are just an opportunity to reroute and re-navigate in the direction that you need to go. And so that obstacle, it just started blocking, and I couldn't see graduation day. I couldn't see going any further past college. All I thought about was quitting. And so I was like, man, this is crazy. I'm gonna have to retake the class. And so, and then so it trickled on with the rest of the pattern. Then the insecurity came up, and insecurities it causes a block where you have the potential to do it, but you don't believe in yourself. And so that's the insecurity. You got that potential. I can do this, but you don't believe in yourself. And so when the insecurity came, I started stressing out. I just started stressing out because I didn't have any balance. I lost control. And of course, the eating habits changed and all that. You get frustrated. And the stress also kicked in because I was a first generation college student. And
Mm.
so I didn't tell my parents because I was afraid to tell my parents because I felt like they wouldn't understand. They wouldn't understand it. And so all they would be, they fussing at me. What's wrong with you? Why you get that grade? You didn't study? No, I'm studying. It's just something didn't connect. And so I had that stress. And then once I was thinking, like, yeah, I can't talk to anybody. I'm a math tutor. I'm a fraud. I ain't gonna tell my parents. I'm like, what's going on? And so I started making excuses. And so this pattern, a lot of students have to deal with this pattern because they don't have that connection and that guidance that they need to make it through the journey that all college students go through.
Let's talk about that, man. When you talk about, the noise, you brought that out, made it an acronym, and the pattern that happens, I'm not going to date you, but when you got that legendary grade that you got, it was a probably a little before social media, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So what type of hidden patterns do you see that are repeatedly not recognized at colleges, at universities, until it's already costing the students too much?
Yeah. So a lot of the hidden patterns is, when the student starts to isolate. Another hidden pattern is the self-doubt. Another hidden pattern that I've noticed is homesickness. Is homesickness in institutions they can't see that. That's the hidden pattern. And so here's the pattern: the isolation, the self-doubt. Now they're homesick, and now they're developing uncertainty on their next move. And then now they're trying to find themselves on campus. So now they have a lack of belonging. And then they're developing, I got the fear of failure. And so they're scared to ask for help.
Mm.
And so that pattern, that isolation, the self doubt, the homesickness, the uncertainty, the lack of belonging, and then the fear of even making a move is a pattern that a lot of institutions do not see. And so the institutions won't notice it until they get the retention report, the GPA declines, the attendance starts becoming a issue, and there may be even some conduct referrals that may pop up. And then, of course, if the student leaves the campus, then the graduation metrics, decline as well. And so that pattern, that isolation, the self-doubt, the homesickness, the uncertainty, the lack of belonging, and the fear of even making a move is a pattern that a lot of institutions do not see.
So let's walk through this a little bit, Rob, to help
Yeah.
those that are listening, watching, or if they have students or children that are in college and maybe they don't see the patterns either. I think we want to be preemptive, right? So when someone like you comes in or when you come in, how do you help them recognize those patterns and how do you help them break those patterns?
So when I come in, I use one of the frameworks that I have. So every college student, I like to say, has a journey that they have an opportunity to go through. And of course, it's the orientation, then the transition, and then the retention, and then leadership. And this journey, once the students make it through this journey, then they're ready for their careers. And so the orientation, the transition, the retention, and to leadership. And so, of course, everybody's excited about orientation. The excitement is there. All the pictures of social media is there. They're moved into their room. They're getting ready for a great big adventure. But does anyone really see that the student is actually ready? And so at orientation, they get all the information, but do they really get the direction they need? And then my favorite area to talk to the leaders, to talk to the students, and talk to the parents about is the transition. The transition is really the key to whether the student stays or whether the student checks out. And so that transition, that is the focus. That would be my area of focus, is to help everybody understand that, hey, the student has to transition. A lot of students think, yeah, I'm going to college, I got freedom, but they don't realize they have now liability and responsibility and accountability. And so, I help the students understand, yeah, you got freedom, but you're also liable now. You
Right.
got freedom, but yeah, you got responsibility now. You got freedom, but now you're accountable for a whole lot of stuff that your parents can no longer do. And while I'm talking to the students about this, I'm also talking to the parents about it as well, because I
Okay.
let the
Okay.
parents know. Yep, I let the parents know that, hey, your role is going to change, but not your influence. Your
Mm.
role is about to change, but not your influence. You're now going from a manager to a coach. You're now moving from one that was controlling everything to now becoming a consultant and an advisor. So
Hold on.
you're,
I wanna stop you there, man, because as my goddaughter is about to go to college and she's about to graduate as we're recording this in about a week, my oldest daughter in about a year. And so when you're talking about roles changing, I want you to go deeper into that because as a
yeah,
parent that's going to be a first time parent of a college student, I don't think that that's something that I know I don't understand that we really understand. So go deep into that about like that role changing and where the parent comes in to help break those patterns.
yeah. So the parent, right? So the one area that I would have the parents, I tell the parents to focus on. You focus on connection before correction.
Mm,
You focus on connecting with your student before you immediately correct. Because as parents, we're going to see a lot of errors. We're going to see, like, hey, wait a minute, what are you doing? But we also got to remember that the student is moving from dependence to independence. And then a lot of them have in their mind, hey, I'm going to college, I can do this, I got this. And so if we're hovering over them versus connecting with them, we're going to have a lot of conflict. And that's the one thing that unhealthy conflict. Let me put it that way, because there's still going to be some conflict. So we don't want the unhealthy conflict, right? And so as parents, some of us have been there, we've seen some things, we understand that the journey is tough, but we also got to realize that the student has to navigate this journey primarily themselves. And so
got
as
it.
parents, we can't hover over them like mother hen, and we gotta let them know, hey, you got this, but we also got you,
That's good. That's really good.
right? You
And
got this, but we got you. And together, we're going to go through this transition together. So if you need help, don't be afraid to reach out and talk to us, because that's what I'm. So as parents, we can't look to fix it immediately. We got to listen. We got to help them analyze it. We got to help them understand it. We got to help them see it. We got to help them inspect it. We got to help them resolve it, and we got to help them implement it.
that's good stuff, man. And
Yeah.
anybody that's listening to this that is a parent or something or that nature, I would suggest looking up what Rob does. And so, Rob, you have, I'm guessing, as I'm trying to envision this, or somebody else listening and watching, you have a program that you speak directly to the students, and then you have a program where you speak directly to the parents. Is that right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. I have a program that speak to both of them. Yes, and
Awesome.
it's exciting. It's exciting to get engaged with the students and parents, man.
And I want to ask you this because the types of individuals that will be seeing this or will be consuming this, Presumably, they'll be in education, and education is one of those institutions that influence intuition. You know what I mean? Like institutionally, they move and then culture and individuals kind of follow it. But when someone is in those roles and they have been in for a long time, they might think that they know things that they don't. Here's the question that I have for you. If you sat down with a director of student affairs, a vice president of student affairs, if you sat down with them, what would you tell them is the biggest misconception institutions have about the modern student and their belonging, their engagement, and their success?
The biggest misconception is uh, the student being silent, not asking questions, defines that they're okay.
Mm. Whew.
That's the biggest misconception. It may look like the student has it all together. They're not asking questions. Then you see them walking across campus. You see them showing up in the classroom. You see them, but they're not communicating. They're not talking. They're drifting. That's the biggest misconception. And check this out. It happens within the first 45 days of school. Because in the first 45 days, that's when you develop patterns. That's when you're trying to figure out which direction you're going. And, uh, you know, research has shown that, within the first 45 days, a significant percentage of students have already psychologically checked out.
Mm.
They haven't left the school yet. They're still in the seats in the classroom, but they're gone. And I've seen this pattern. I was number one at being a first generation college student, where I started out at NC State without the road map, and then I transferred to University of Alaska with the same unwritten rules on how to navigate your path on campus. And then once I was up in Alaska, the everything was still the same. I had that feeling of disorientation, the quick sense of not belonging. The sense of not belonging is not visible. It's not visible. You
Go
can't,
deeper into that. Go deeper into that.
right? So a sense of belonging is, students will go into a crowd to belong. And once they're in that crowd, if you can't really identify what's going on with that student because they're mimicking and doing what everybody else is doing. And so in crowds, you don't have a sense of direction. And so I tell students there are two things on every campus. You have lines and you have crowds. Which
You
one are you
have
going to
what?
stay?
Say that again. You said there are two things on every
There-
campus.
There's two things on every campus. You have lines and you have crowds. When you're standing in a line, you have direction. You know where you're going. You know why you're standing in that line. But when you're standing in the crowd, you're just in there hanging around with everybody else with no direction, right? Crowds move, but they may not be going anywhere. But when your line moves, it's getting you closer and closer to your destination, to your reason why you're standing in that line. And so when the sense of belonging, that sense of belonging, when they don't have that sense of belonging, they gravitate to the crowd, trying to find where they belong, trying to find where they fit in. I truly believe if a student doesn't really understand why I am here on this campus, like I'm on this campus with purpose. If they don't understand their purpose, they don't understand their identity, they don't understand their why they're here, they can get caught up in the crowd. And so that's a major piece that our students really need to understand, and not just the students, but the staff, the administrators. That you can't see the student drifting until you get that data report. So you got to have that that engagement as soon as they get on campus. Whether if you have them filling out an assessment, you can have them filling out an assessment that asks them questions about, I go to class consistently, I complete assignments on time, I take ownership when I fall behind. You can ask them questions where they can rate themselves 1 through 5. I believe I belong here. I speak up when needed. I move with confidence in new environments, right? And so, based off of how the student rates themselves with this assessment, like I studied before, it becomes urgent. I follow through on what I start. I stay consistent when I don't feel like it. And after they score themselves, wherever the institution identifies that gap, that's where you can start an action plan with the student. So their advisors can take the assessment and say, hey, we've identified this area, we identified this gap. So here, let's go through a solution for you. Let's create a mission statement for you so you can get to the next level.
That's good, man. I feel like for those of you watching right now, the next step is to hire Rob to come in and implement all the all the ins and outs. I mean, because that's amazing stuff. I'm thinking about my journey through undergrad and how I didn't get that check in. I didn't get that assessment, and I really was one of those students that you're describing. Like I didn't look sad, I didn't look like I did. I went to the gym on a regular basis, but academically, I was fragmented. I was struggling. I was going through it, and just a little check in like that could be powerful. I want to ask this question because, so I want to say this plainly and quickly. We push our students to go to college so that they can make money, you know and sometimes we skirt around that because we're refined and we don't want to be about the money, but that's a major reason. Of course, you want them to have a positive experience, you want them to learn how to be independent slowly, whatever that is. But I want to connect this to their economic well-being as well. If they're not connected on campus, Rob, how does that potentially mess with their future financial capacity?
Okay. So if you are not connected on campus, right, you can go through and take all your classes and not even really understand why you took what you took. A lot of students will go and say, "Hey, my dad's a doctor. I'm going to be a doctor. My parents were lawyer. I'm going to be a lawyer." Right? And they get on campus following the patterns of their parents, and not
Mm.
the pattern and the journey that was created for them. And when students go through doing what somebody else has coached them to do and coached them to do, and the student is not feeling it, they feel like this is not me, this is not my wife, they'll get out of college and they will say, I don't want to be a lawyer. And now they've wasted 4 years, 5 years, 6 years of going through school, and they're sitting right there like, why am I here? Why did I take this major? And so they basically have, you know, a cost. They took up a cost that wasn't directed for their actual purpose. So now they got to probably add additional more costs to get them to where they want to go, right? And so, yeah, you just don't want the student to waste time. You don't want them to waste their money, and you just don't want them to waste that. So once you get them in at orientation, once you get them in that first 45 days, and you engage with them, and you get them thinking about who I am and what I really want to do, now they're more direct. Now they've lined up with the finish line. Okay, this is where I'm going, this is what I'm doing, and this is how I'm doing it. Then that helps with the cost or wasting costs or even increasing any more costs. And it also keeps them there. So now, hey, the institution, they still get the tuition, right? you know, the institution, they still get that tuition money. And then, now if they stay there, the financial aid will be able to keep up with the student, or if the student drops out. So now where's that scholarship money going? And we got to go through the whole cycle. And then if that student does not stay, now the institution is going back through, recruiting another student. That costs. That costs. So you're recruiting, and now so now you done lost one after you done invested in one. Now you lost one. Now you got to invest in another. So that's more cost right there on the app. And so
So
it's
that
best to make sure that they're there. Yeah.
that's cost on both sides. So
Yes.
I want to end on this, and I think it'll be a good kind of bow to put on this. Make sure you reach out to Rob Williams and RW Connections. Bring him in not just to speak with your students, but to mentor your students into success, and also to talk to your students on family and parent welcome day or welcome week. But Rob, I want you to paint a picture for the listeners as we go out on this. 5, 10 years from now, let's say colleges all over the country fully embrace what we talked about around pattern recognition and student success and engagement. If they did what your philosophy and what your programs implement, what would be different about colleges across America 5, 10 years from now?
I truly believe the culture of every college would change. It would start being a culture of more than just an experience. It would be a culture where students are coming to build, and then after they build, that hey, this is family. So it's easier for them to now come back and help those that are coming up, right? And then also, if you we went through the whole process of helping the families transition. So if that family has more than one child, what is the likelihood of that child going to college or even going to the same college, right? What is the likelihood of the parents now getting engaged and getting involved on campus and looking even to help other students saying, hey, you can do this? So, following my frameworks and following the concepts that I have will build a culture of what America needs today, a new generation of leaders. So it helps build leadership. And then the leaders will come back and help build more leaders. And so we're building leaders after leaders after leaders. And then it's a family of leaders are now being developed where, if a new student comes in and they feel left out, those that have already been in your place will now have understanding saying, hey, we got you. And so that first 45 days will now shape the 4 years in a different perspective. And so a student's next 4 years won't be shaped by data. It will be shaped by connection.
That's a great mic drop right there. Ladies and gentlemen, you've heard the amazing expertise of the one and only Rob Williams. And I'm just going to say this: you don't need another speaker on campus, you need a Rob Williams. See y'all on the next one.